Okay.
That doesn't exist.
Okay.
Okay. Unless you want to stare at it.
No.
Then I'll just zoom to you for the whole thing.
I'm just going to stare at Sean.
Is this too awkward? Do you want me to move that down so it's not like at your nose?
Oh, I don't know.
You want it to be more on your chin.
Oh, you do? Listen, I'm not
For
a rock
music, you want right here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Think
music.
chin.
How's that?
For
Is that
a-
better?
For an
I mean, it looks better.
Okay, yeah.
SM60.
Let's do that.
SM58.
FM 58?
SM. It's a Shure 58
Okay.
microphone. That's a good quality. That's like the gold standard for the last 40 years.
Can you guys hear me okay?
You know that?
Yeah, you're
Is
good.
this too close?
No, you're good. I borrowed that from church just because I knew that there were going to be people here. Okay. Hey, technically we are recording right now.
Okay.
And I have like...
Is that like a precursor to let us know?
Yeah, just... I'm sure we're going. We're being recorded.
Our conversation's being recorded.
Yeah. So, and I do have 128 gigs, so we could go till like midnight next week sometime. So, anyway. Hey, guys. So today I've got with me, I have Clint. I'm not going to say your last name
Thank you.
because it's nobody's business.
Okay.
But I do have Clint and I have Josh here. Josh and Clint both have their own very unique experience in law enforcement. Clint, you've been at this a long time.
24 years yesterday.
24 years yesterday. I was 10.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Josh, you started just a couple months after me, but you have your own unique experiences too, especially before law enforcement. So we've gathered together this week for we all take part in this, some peer support type of training this week, and so I think wellness is on the brain, right? And I was saying earlier, a lot of people do tune into this here because we kind of tend to focus on some of that, and faith is a big part of that, and so that's kind of why Thin Line Believers even exists. Now, Josh, you have a lot more experience than I do. But before we get going, you are the guest. Will you pray us in?
Sure. We love you, God. I trust you. And I know you're in control. I know you care about us. And I am grateful. Every time I pray, I'm grateful to be your servant. I'm grateful to live in the United States, to have so much, to have a great family, to grab a home, to have a good paying job. I'm grateful. So I love you. Amen.
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 I like that you said that. See, Chaplain Jim was just talking about thankfulness, how important that is. But tell me about your experience pre-law enforcement.
So I, you just want me to go for it or what? I mean, just charging right in.
That's how this works. I know this is the first time for you, but you were a pastor.
I'm a firstie.
Let's do some pastor talk here. What was pre-cop, Josh?
So I got a degree in youth work from Corbin University, and I kind of fumbled into being a youth pastor in 1993, and gained a passion for young men and women and leading them and leading groups of people and leading groups of volunteers and leading intern groups and bringing on more peers. And I was working with, by the end of the 2000s or end of the 90s, I was working with like 600 kids a week, and we had an indoor skate park and massive amounts of youth kids and all kinds of stuff going every week. It was mega church is what it was.
Now, I got to ask a quick side question here. Rabbit trail. How do you see youth pastors now that you're in law enforcement? You still look at them the same? Or has that been tainted a little bit?
No,
You laugh because that's a valid question.
No, I see him. I see him the same. It's a hard job, It's being a pastor is similar to being in law enforcement. People don't they don't want to talk to you until they really need you. Mm-hmm. And when they really need a cop, show up with a gun, they really want you there, and they're very thankful. When their heart and soul is broken and they need some help with their marriage or their decisions, then they need God and they want a guide, and they find a pastor or a chaplain or some spiritual leader. And so there's a lot of similarities. The difference I found, we even talked about this today a little bit, the difference I found is that my life as a pastor, I viewed people from a perspective of from a positive perspective. I believe in them. They can do it. They have a bright future. God can...
Seeing the good in everyone.
Seeing the good in them. God can change their life. They have somewhere they can go. Where in law enforcement, it can be very much the opposite. I see the poor decisions people are going to make. I believe they're going to make a bad decision. I believe they're going to hurt me.
Yeah.
So for the outcome, the way that you view people can be very different between being a pastor and being a cop. And anyway, I don't know how we got on that, but so I went from being a pastor to being in law enforcement, and it does change the way that you view people. And I think about that outwardly every day when I'm a cop, mm-hmm. how I look at someone, how I view them.
Sweet. Clint, you have a heck of a different experience.
I do.
Yeah. Take us through your early career.
After high school, I joined the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
Spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. Got out. Went to Chemeketa, got an associate's degree. So during that time, I worked at a car dealership, washing cars, nights and weekends. Put myself through college. And once I got done with that, state police finally picked me up and sent me to Madras. They called and offered me a job, and they said, "Hey, we have a job in Madras. Will you take it?" I said, "Are you actually offering me a job?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Then I'll take it." And been there my entire career.
And you like it again?
And I like it again.
That's awesome.
Didn't like it for a little bit, but now I like it again.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Well, listen, I'm only going to ask you to talk about what you want to talk about, but I am kind of curious as to how do we keep people well? Because it's going to be like this through everybody's career, right? And the more we can help people stay up here, the better it's going to be. Because I think what the rest of the world fails to see is that we have the same exact problems as anybody else, but then we get to deal with their problems as well. And they may experience trauma once or twice in their life, but we get to experience their trauma and their trauma and their trauma and their trauma. And then we're expected to make the right decision every time and then go home and not let it affect us. And we talk about this a lot, right? That's kind of we have volunteered for this job to help other people navigate their own traumas, their own gnarly life events, and somehow help to give them the tools to maintain some level of mental health. And I would say mental health is the kind of the surface of it. Obviously here at this podcast, our biggest concern is spiritual health, but I think personally they go hand in hand. At least they do for me. If I'm spiritually unhealthy, I'm not going to be very mentally healthy either. But so I'm just opening this up for discussion, really.
Go ahead, Clint.
I think that we do have a huge problem with mental health in law enforcement, and depending on what assignment that you're put into, I would say that in law enforcement in general, they do a really good job of telling us to go do our job, but they don't do a very good job of proactively helping us stay healthy and mentally healthy throughout our careers. And early on in your career, you might be able to see those different things and go through different situations, and you might be able to bounce back or let it roll off your back. But the older you get and the longer you've been doing it, those things just start compounding and compounding and compounding. And I think law enforcement in general does a really bad job of, as they see it compounding, they do a really bad job of taking care of you to make sure that it doesn't compound too much and you start having problems that you shouldn't be having. And they force it all the way up to the line. If there's a line on it, they take you right to the line, and then they hope you don't cross over that line, or you don't, they take you right up to the edge of the cliff and hope you don't jump off the cliff. But they want to keep you teetering at the edge of the cliff as long as they can, and then go, man, we hope he doesn't jump. But they don't do anything proactively to make sure that you don't make it to the edge of the cliff to begin with. And if they see you getting to the edge of the cliff, depending on what their motives are, they might go, you know what? We'll take them all the way to the edge of the cliff, and then just yeah, you know what? We've used him and we've abused him, and let's just push him off.
Yeah.
You know what? We've used him, and so I think the biggest challenge, and especially with me, the biggest challenge was nobody proactively looked out for me, and nobody proactively gave me the tools, or I didn't feel like they gave me the tools to be successful long term. And yeah, early on in my career, things would roll off my back, and then as they got compounded, they got more and more heavy.
Yeah. And I think one of the big problems that we see that, we are able to sometimes put the pieces together now. With an injury, it's visible, right? With an injury, the worse it is, the more it hurts, the bigger that injury is.
Injury.
Yeah. We don't use that sign here. That's something. Anyway.
No, I lost a finger.
Oh, got it.
Wrong one.
Anyway, so yeah. So, and I'm not making excuses for departments. Don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But I think it's far too easy to say, oh yeah, Clint's just being a jerk. Clint's having problems at home. That has nothing to do with his job. Or it's kind of like, well, if we don't do something about it, is it really hurting us? Because, well, good luck, Clint, blaming that on the job. You can say all you want, but it's not a visible injury. So
yeah,
good luck with that. Right.
Yeah.
And so this is a tough place to be in. And, we now are seeing a whole lot more of it, and we're able to put the pieces together and say, oh yeah, this is years of seeing and walking through and just dealing with muck all the time. So
it's known as, we talk about it in our training. It talks about the cumulative effect of experience and exposure. It could be exposure to people dying and death. It could be exposure to going into a double wide trailer and walking through dog poop and seeing a child live in that environment. It could be multiple domestic violence events that just seem hopeless. It could be, I don't know, on and on.
Sex abuse.
Sex abuse. Mm-hmm. All kinds of critical
OIS,
exposures that might just be little drops. I think of it as a barrel. It's like you were talking about the edge. It's the same thing. A barrel that fills up with water, and just a couple of drops, or maybe it was a pretty significant event, and it's a glug of a gallon or two, and then eventually it might even be a little event that makes it spill over. I think that's kind of what you were describing. It's going over the edge. It's the spilling of the barrel. The bucket is full.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is then, how do we empty out a little bit of that?
I say we don't let it get, if you were talking about the barrel, don't let it get to the top. Mm-hmm. Don't let the drops of water go into the top. I think, there's some agencies that they do a really good job. And I say they do a really good job. They switch out detectives 5-7 years. Mm-hmm. There's a mandatory rotation for detectives to getting in and out of there. The reconstruction units, there's a mandatory switch out, 5 to 7 years, we'll rotate you out of there because there's no reason for people to see, the detectives to see all of the things that you described before, sex abuse and investigating, which I would never want to do, and I never have, thankfully.
Same.
But that takes a special trooper or officer to be able to do that. I have no desire to ever do that, and kudos to them. But I don't know specifically for SWAT if there's a rotation on those units. Is there? I don't know if there's a standard nationwide. If there's but
I don't think so. I mean,
okay.
with stuff like that, you get to a certain training level, and then it's kind of hard to replace that. Without, I would say SWAT, it takes at least 2 years to be proficient. I'd say it's probably the same working dope. But I see what you're saying. And
yeah. So for collision reconstruction, for an example, to be a really good reconstructionist, I mean, it's 7 to 10 years. I mean, I wasn't I was proficient, but I didn't feel like I was to the level that I needed to be until probably year 7, maybe 7 to 10. And so, I mean, it's a skill, and there's a lot of schooling involved. And I mean, it's not an easy thing, but the challenge that you have, depending on the area that you work, I mean, you might work let's say I'm in a one area, and it's a low fatality, serious injury crash area. And maybe I go to 5 fatal crashes or deaths a year. Though that person probably can stay in the unit a lot longer because they don't have the volume. But then the area that I currently work, there's a high volume of serious injury and fatal crashes, homicides. And so then the things that we see, I mean, there was times that I left one fatal and went to the next fatal.
Yeah.
And I did it for 16 years. And I really felt like, 16 years, probably year 15, my wife was seeing the changes. I mean, I was already starting to struggle. I had dead kids living in my head. I couldn't get them out. My wife saw it, and she told me, she says, you need to stop doing it. I'm watching it kill you inside.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't listen to her, and I continued to do it until I ended up on that crash that sent me spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
And when I started going down, I started going down hard and fast.
So I kind of wonder, if there's not going to be limits, there certainly needs to be a better system of sharing the load.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I would also say that with that, you need to have strong leadership that is willing to admit, yes, we see a problem, and you know what? We probably should give Clint a break, and we should probably cut him. Give him a break. Let's pull him back out of the unit, or either pull him out of the unit or just give him a break from the unit, and let him recharge and get him some counseling and get him some help, instead of push until your bucket's too full and you can't fill it up anymore. Because I truly believe if we would have caught this a year, maybe 2 before my 16 years, if we would have caught this ahead of time, I truly believe that maybe they could have salvaged me. Maybe they could have got me through enough counseling to get me leveled off in a flat area, and then maybe I could have continued down after they leveled me off and got me the help that I needed. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have strong leaders that are willing to go, you know what? We understand you're super valuable, and you have a lot of information, and we appreciate all the information you have. But what we want you to do right now is we want you to just take a break from Reconstruction. We're not kicking you out of the program. We just want you to take a break. We have this counselor over here. It's not mandated, because when you tell cops things are mandated, they freak out. Yeah. So it's not mandated. But what we want to do is we want to give you an opportunity to go chat with this counselor. And you can walk in and tell them that you don't want to talk to them. We don't care. We're giving you the opportunity to get the help that you need. Mm-hmm. And let's see what the counselor has to say. And, it's not a fitness for duty. We just want to see if they can get you on a better path to be successful.
Yeah.
I was told by a psychiatrist, she told me, she says, Clint, there's a reason that we don't send old guys to war. because I asked her, I said, man, when I was young, I'd bounce right back and bounce right back. Now that I'm old, I don't bounce back as quick. And she goes, that's why we don't send guys your age to war. She goes, because the older you get, the harder it is to bounce back. And the other thing is as you continue doing it, she told me something that I didn't think about until she said it, but she told me, she goes, adrenaline's an addictive drug, isn't it?
Oh, man.
And I said, it is. And I looked back at doing reconstruction, and it was adrenaline filled. I would get the call, adrenaline dump. I was going to an officer involved shooting. I was going to a fatal. I was going to all these things, and the adrenaline dump hit. And I work my magic on the scene. I figure out everything, do whatever it is my assignment is. And then that drain at the end, I mean, your body is done.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much of an adrenaline junkie I was until I stopped being a junkie.
Yeah, and the after effect really is, coming down off of that stuff. There's a toxicity to it.
There is.
Coming off of it,
Yeah.
where you want it back.
Yeah.
It appears to me almost to have an opiate effect.
Yeah.
But, okay, I'm going to kind of direct this one at you, Josh, because as much as I would really love for departments nationwide to stop focusing so much on numbers, positions, all these things that look good on paper that you can present to, governments, and start to focus on the individual and taking care of the individuals. Granted, I think that some departments do it right, some departments not so much. And I even think that a certain department that, we all are involved with, there are people in positions that are hoping to make that happen, right? But in the meantime, what do I do? What do you do? What do you do? I mean, your experience is amazing because having gone through that, as sucky as that was, you can look at the next guy and you can say, hey, I'm seeing something in you, and I know that I don't want it to get to this place. Let me give you a hand.
100%.
Yeah. So that's my question. Josh, with your education, with your experience, how do we do that? How do we see that? How do we teach that to guys with a little bit of hey, you need to know yourself, right? You need to understand yourself and know when you have reached that level where now's a good time for maintenance, because if you don't do some maintenance now, we're going to be picking up the pieces.
Well, this is going to sound kind of negative, but see, to a certain level, some of the work that I think that we do and we want to do with our peers is futile without God.
Mm-hmm.
That we can provide some hope. We can model what we think is healthy. You talk about exercise and eating right and prioritizing family and
all good things,
all great things, and they're excellent, and and I believe in that, and I teach that, and I promote it. I believe in taking long vacations to disconnect. I believe in turning off your phone. I believe in all these things that I think are healthy attributes to keep people from going over the edge or from their bucket getting too full. And there's a lot more to that. But deep down, I just want dudes to know Jesus, because I think that's where hope is found. And, sometimes our hands are tied. I serve in a leadership position with the state police, and it of a particular state. And
thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Nondescript.
North Dakota, eh?
Of a nondescript state. And unfortunately, we can't just say, "Hey, bro, you're all jacked up. You need Jesus."
Yeah,
we just can't.
You just did.
I did, but it's difficult, and sometimes in uniform to. But there's times when I'm open about it, like, "Hey, I have faith. I have faith that helps me through this, and I have something." This is what I can and do say to men and women. You've got to be about something that's greater than yourself. And because if you're only about yourself, yourself is going to fail you. The agency you work for is going to fail you. Society around you is going to fail you. The culture of being a cop is going to fail you at some point. And you've got to be about something greater than yourself. And I don't tell people that they have to follow Jesus, that's the only path for greater than themselves. I don't say that. I hope I model it. I hope they want what I have. I'm far from flawless. I'm far from perfect. In fact, that's the beauty, is that I can say I'm broken, and I recognize that I'm broken and I need something greater than myself. That's the whole point. So I don't know. I really do think the greater hope is all these good habits and stuff that we teach, all the right relationships, meeting with a chaplain, talking with a mental health professional, doing all the things that help our body and our mind and our soul. But without Jesus, there just isn't. It just isn't complete, and I believe that.
Well, yeah, it's very temporal fix. Yeah. It's a very temporal fix, and I kind of, I love how Jesus, he likened it to a house built on a solid rock,
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't say that the storm isn't going to come, because that storm is still going to friggin' come, and it's going to suck, and it may tear up your house a bit, mm-hmm. but the foundation is still going to be solid, and that's the whole point, right? You build your house on the sand, the whole thing's going to crumble. So I agree with that. What do you think, Clint?
So part of your question was, what can we do different?
Yeah.
I know a reconstructionist now that the person needs to be pulled out of the unit. The person won't pull themselves out of the unit, and the department finds them so valuable that they won't pull them out of the unit. And that's a failure on the department, and it's a failure on the leadership to recognize it, because now that I look back at the symptoms that I'm seeing in this person, they need to get pulled out of the unit. And I've told them that, and they won't pull themselves out because that drug, adrenaline's keeping them there. So that's the side. That's to answer part of your question on that. But I like what Josh had to say, and I'm a believer that everything happens for a reason. God's got a plan, and His plan is perfect. And I might not always like it, but I have found that every time that God has, over the course of my my life, every time He's put up something that I thought was challenging and something that I thought was, oh my gosh, I never say why me. I always say why not me. But I got to tell you, with PTSD, I was like, hey, come on, God, this is tough. And so, but I didn't know. I didn't know why He was doing it to me. Hindsight's 20/20. I can look back, and I know why. It wasn't an easy thing, but what it did do is it got me to get. First of all, it got me to get help, but it also, I had. There's no more God, number one, but there's no more than 50 people that saved me. I didn't know that I was worth saving, and I didn't know if I could be saved. But there was no less than 50 people that reached out, and they saved me. And it could have been a text message, a call. It could have been them praying for me, that saved me. Because some of those people have no idea that they even did it. But some of those text messages were the worst, the darkest days of my career. And that one text message brought me back up a little bit so that I could get through that day. But now that I'm through that difficult area, and I still struggle every single day, I still struggle. But I got to tell you that since then, I've had multiple people, multiple other police officers call me and go, Clint, I thank you for having the courage to get help. I'm having the same problems, or I'm having similar problems. What do I do about it? And I'm like, perfect. I happen to know a counselor. She's a rock star. And so then, I happen to know this person or this person, and we can get you help. And sometimes, although I look back on it and I'm like, man, that was difficult, I can at least say, you know what, that happened for a reason. God's got a plan, and it's perfect. It wasn't an easy journey for me, and it still isn't an easy journey. But you know what? maybe God I believe that God put me in that position so that I could help others that might not be strong enough to help themselves, that maybe don't have the relationship with the Lord that I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can take one or two stances on it. I talked about Job with a group of folks earlier today. Job is one of my favorite and one of my least favorite books, if that makes sense. And you'll understand that if you read it, right? So Job lost everything. All of his kids, all of his livestock, all of his money, all of it was taken, and his health. His health was gone, so much so that he was taking potsherds, and I had to look that one up a while back. A potsherd is a broken piece of pottery to scrape the boils off of his body because he was just in misery. And you could take the stance of his wife, right? And his wife said, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" Because, misery, absolute misery. She lost it all too, right? But I love Job's response. In the midst of all this, right? He says, "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks." I would never say that to my wife. Okay?
Good for you.
Yeah. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. And I think, in the midst of your struggles, you didn't say, screw you, You didn't say, "I'm done." And you probably wanted to, right?
I did.
But you can't.
In the Marine Corps, they always say, there's a saying that what doesn't kill you will only make you stronger. You know what? It didn't kill me, and I truly believe that I'm stronger because of it. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't have done it without God and no less than 50 other people that had my back, including my family, and my coworkers, the rock stars.
Yeah. And we talked about that saying, God will never give you more than you can handle.
Yeah.
And me being a fickle pickle, I pointed out that, that's not really what the verse says. And there's a reason I said that, because
I'm glad you did.
This is what I believe with my whole heart. God will give you more than you can handle, because he will never give you more than he can handle. But what it takes is your submission to him in order for him to handle it for you.
I like that.
That's what I believe entirely. Because what it really says, right, Josh, is God will never allow you to be tempted above that which, you can handle. And he'll give you a way out. And so...
And then he says, "But I'll provide a way out."
Exactly. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a "but" in there.
Yep.
But...
And when the Bible says that word, you pay attention. But God. Those two words alone give me more encouragement than almost any other portion of the Bible, because we see adversity, but God. So what do you recommend?
Well,
because people are struggling right now,
Yeah.
And we can't depend on departments.
If we can't depend on the department, and that's the failure.
That's
of
why
the
we have
departments.
this. It is,
Yeah.
but that's the point. That's why we have this right here, because I'm your brother, and it's my responsibility to take care of you now.
That's 100%, and that's great. And you're right. I think that it's really easy. It's easier for somebody else to see we're having problems than for us to see that we're having problems or admit that we're having problems. Alcoholics usually don't go, "Oh, I'm an alcoholic." Somebody else is like, "Hey, dude, you're an alcoholic and you need help," right? Somebody else sees it. I'm not an alcoholic, by the way, but just throwing that out there. A little shaky. I had some water. Anyway, but no, that's other people can see it better than you can. That's why my wife saw it a year ahead of time that reconstruction was killing me, because my wife was in tune to me and what was going on in my life. And I think that our coworkers, just like I mentioned, I know that coworker that's struggling right now and needs to be pulled out of the unit. Mm-hmm. All I can do is go to that person and tell them, "You need to get out of the unit. This is killing you." It's up to them and the department to make that happen. So I think that's a solid, valid point, that we as police officers really need to look out for each other, because if we don't look out for each other, I don't know that anybody else is going to look out for us.
Yeah. And we also, man, we gotta let down our pride, and we have to give permission for people to say that to us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. The other thing that I agree 100% with you said, we got to help each other. I also think there's times when an interesting part of my story is I came into law enforcement kind of later, and a lot of my friend base had already been established. Law enforcement was not necessarily my friend base. I didn't need it to exist. A lot of people come in law enforcement, they may move to a community or a town or a PD or a sheriff's office, whatever, and they don't know anyone else except the people in that culture. And so their friend base are cops. I didn't need that. My friend base was already well established. And there's some people like me where we have friends that are outside of law enforcement as well. I do have friends that are in law enforcement. But I find when you talk about the longevity of how do I make it, I can't lose my marriage. That is the most valuable thing I have. It's the most valuable thing you have. You were describing your wife and her involvement, seeing your challenges a year before it happened. It doesn't mean if you've gone through divorce or you struggled with, multiple marriages that you don't have value and life's over. I just know what I can't do. I can't lose my marriage. So I'm going to guard that. And that has not a whole lot to do with my peers at work. That has to do a lot with me and her, and mostly me, and keeping my mind straight and allowing the way out that God provides in temptation, because there's always temptation, but God will provide a way out. That's the kind of thing that keeps my marriage together, and I'm a flawed, broken man, but that's how I make it. That's how you're going to make it, Adam. Don't
100%.
lose that great wife you have.
No, 100%. In fact, when you're saying that, it was very recently. I've been struggling with some stuff, and by God's grace, my wife has struggled with stuff, and God bless her. I've been with her since I was 14, and she is more solid today than she's ever been, and I can't say enough good things about how she has walked with me, beside me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that God took, from Adam's side and made Eve, right? How does that go? He didn't take
Is that
her.
your wife's name, Eve?
No.
Sorry,
Well played.
couldn't
Well
leave
played.
that one alone.
No, but there's a reason. How does it go? He didn't make her from his feet because she's not beneath him. He didn't make her out of his head because she's not above him. He made him from her side because she is beside him, where she's supposed to be. And I know we could talk about all this, submit to your blah, blah, blah. But the point of it all is she is beside me. You can take that.
I do have a call I need to take. Can you step
pause
out
it
for a second?
Okay.
Actually better.
Oh, good.
It does look nice. No, we were on the topic of you were talking about solid wives.
Solid wives.
And Clint had yet to pitch in on this topic.
Yeah, no. My wife is my wife is definitely a huge supporter, and
She likes you.
she likes me. After 25 years, it's weird, but she does still like me. Or at least she professes to still like me. But I do know that the day that I resigned from the unit, my wife was ecstatic because then she was on the road to getting her husband back. And I never, ever could have made it through without her and without my kids, too.
Mm-hmm.
My kids are rock stars and big supporters also. So
Sweet.
good job, wives.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the majority of the folks that listen to this are probably married, but for those that aren't, we talked about Jesus. This is the biggest thing that I could ever hope to portray to anybody is that if you have faith in Christ, it'll get you through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about just a surface level belief, because even the devil believes, right? I'm talking about a walking faith relationship with your Creator. I think that's the most important thing personally. That's what's gotten me through anything and everything. And there was a bit that I didn't really have that. And it took my wife's cancer, my deadly force. It took responding to a crash scene with my coach's son killed, and a number of other things, that all in the same year. And that was a wake-up call for me. You know what I did before that, Josh? I got to tell you about this.
What'd you do?
I remember even where I was on the highway when I heard this. I was listening to a sermon. It was actually Pastor John Corson, and he was doing a Bible study, and he put out a challenge. He said, if you want to have a close relationship with the Lord, I challenge you to this. Pray for trials. And me, in my naive state, I said that prayer, and I meant it. I did. I meant it. And God allowed it. God allowed it. And finally, after that year, because it took that year, but after that year, I can honestly say I then had a relationship. I had a belief before that. I didn't have a relationship. And I don't think the two are the same. I don't think that a shallow belief is what the Bible means when it says, believe in me and you'll be saved. I don't think that it's just, oh yeah, he exists. You know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Okay, I'm not one to judge the Bible. I'm supposed to let the Bible judge me. But I will say that if I didn't have a relationship with my Maker right now, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So.
I just, everything happens for a reason. I mean, I can point out things that happened in my childhood that came back and helped me as an adult. If you want me to give you examples, I can.
That's up to you. Your microphone is in your face, so you
Thanks.
Can say whatever you'd like.
No, so growing up, these people that grew up in Roseburg, and these people had a sheep ranch. And they adopted all of these kids that nobody wanted. It was amazing. I was friends with one of their sons. I went out. I loved going to their house. It was all these kids, a lot of them were special needs kids, and it was nothing but love when I went out there. I mean, it was the best place in the world. I absolutely loved going out there. Every chance I absolutely could. They were amazing people. They went to my church. Just a great family. And unbeknownst to me, years later, I was going to have a son, and I had no idea that I was going to have a son with special needs. And my son has Treacher-Collins syndrome. Mentally, he's a normal kid. He just it's a craniofacial syndrome. But we didn't know we were going to have a special kid. And when he was born, my wife and I never said, why us? We said, why not us? God provided this child to us for a reason. And I told my wife, I said, do you remember the Welleses that I told you I grew up with? She goes, yeah, I do remember that story. And I go, if they could do it with 15, we can do it with 1. We got this. And we never said, why us? And I believe that God put the Welleses in my life for a reason when I was a young man, because he was preparing my heart for the son that he was going to bless me with. And I can tell you that over the course of my career, the trials and the struggles that I've had with my son, I've been able to take some of those trials and struggles and then talk to people. I know we're not supposed to preach to people whenever we're stopping them on the side of the road or they're having problems, but I've been able to take that experience and minister to people that I come in contact with over the course of my career. And I believe that God did that for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? Immediately, I didn't know why God blessed me with our son. I think after about 5 years, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a better Christian. I'm a better father. I'm a better husband, and I'm a better person because of him. And my daughter, she's going to be a wonderful mother someday because she kind of raised him. That was a joke. She's 2 years older, and a lot of times we're like, hey, could you feed Kagan for us? Hey, can you watch him eat? Make sure he doesn't choke. And
Nice.
Anyway.
Josh, you're being a lot more quiet than I expected. You're practicing way too much of this active listening that you were helping teach today.
Well, before you get on that, I have to tell the story. I have to.
Go on.
Okay. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was everywhere I went when I was in the Marine Corps, I always found a Baptist church to go to. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was dating my wife. She was living in Salem. And so I got out the Marine Corps, and I went to find a church to go to, a Baptist church. And so the first one I went to, I was like, this isn't for me. And somebody's like, you should go to Grace Baptist Church. They got a great college and career group there. And I'm like, sounds good. So I go to it, and they had a great college and career group. Amazing people. And the most amazing husband and wife actually were in charge of that college and career group. Somebody that I grew to love, and I thought they were amazing people, and I still today, I have fond memories of the things that they did for me and they taught me. Well, guess who those people were? They were Josh's parents. And so then Josh, I meet him. They take us to Triangle Lake. We have an outing, the college and career. My wife was part of the group too. We go to the outing and that's where I meet Josh. And Josh teaches me how to water ski. And so I end up seeing Josh, meeting him. I water ski today because of him. And then
he's part of the Pro-Am slalom circuit. It's a big series.
He taught me on a he taught me how to kneeboard first, and then then I graduated to the skis. Anyway, so then in 1998, I go off and I became a state trooper, and away I go. Well, several years later, Josh sees me at the academy, and he goes, "I think I knew you in another life." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he tells me who he is and who his folks were, and I'm like, "No way." And so today, he's one of my supervisors, and he's a rock star. But I've known him a long time. I don't remember what year that was, but that was like 95-ish.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Do you still water ski?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
I did a lot of wakeboarding back then, and
you were cooler back then.
Yeah, well, you could live off a can of tuna and a tank full of gas.
Yeah.
Now you can't afford a tank full of gas.
You can't.
No.
So
that was a fond memory that I'll always have of Josh.
Nice. Any more wisdom, Josh? I mean, I saw you scrolling Bible verses earlier, and you gave up.
I was looking for that Corinthians verse you were talking about, and I couldn't remember which chapter. It's like 9:13 or 13:9 or one of those.
Nice.
So.
Okay. Well, no sense in belaboring this, so thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
It's a good thing.
Okay.
Good word, Clint.
Clint, you're already on a roll. You want to pray us out?
Yes.
All right.
Dear Lord, thank you for letting us all get together tonight, and thanks for Josh, thanks for Adam, and just thank you for the fellowship that you provide us. Thank you for the people that you put in our lives that we need to become stronger and more resilient. Lord, put it on our hearts of our supervisors and our leaders and our agencies to do the right thing and to help us get the help we need before we need it. And Lord, if they're not willing to do it, we just ask you to give us the courage and the strength to, if we see our coworkers struggling and having problems, give us the strength and the courage to bring it out to them and help them and mentor them and give them the willingness and the strength to be accepting to our help. Thank you, Lord, for everything you've blessed us with. Amen.
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 So, seriously though, if you're listening to this and you're struggling, and you don't know how to deal with that. You don't know where to turn. You don't know who to talk to. Send me an email. If you want to talk to one of these guys, they would be happy to talk to you.
Absolutely.
To help you out.
100%.
In whatever way you need. If it's a referral, if it's just somebody that you need to chat with, if one of their experiences resonates with you, if there's a familiarity there, send Thinline Believers an email, okay? thinlinebelievers@gmail.com. And don't be a friggin' turd. Send the email. Don't think that you need to struggle through this crap alone, because that's just stupid. It really is. Any one of us want to help you. So seriously, send us an email if you're having a hard time, and we'll put you in touch with whoever it is that you need to be put in touch with.
Can I just add a couple more things real quick?
No, you can't, because we already prayed.
Oh, sorry.
Go,
we learned two of the best advice things that I got. Somebody told me, because I said, man, I just want to feel normal again. And he told me, you're never going to feel normal again. Every single day, instead of trying to feel normal, I try to be better than I was the day before. And that was some of the best advice. So every day in my recovery from PTSD, every day I got up and I went, okay, I have to be better than I was the day before. That was one thing that I'll always remember. And the second thing that there's a lot of things I remember, but the second one was, if you're feeling down and you're like, man, it's hopeless and I'm way down and I don't know what to do, call a friend. Mm-hmm. Call a friend. Call somebody. Because that one thing, you might talk to them for 5 minutes, and if you're down here so low that you think you can't go anymore, you talk to them for 5 minutes, you're gonna forget you're that low, and it's gonna bring you back up. I promise you, I've done it, and it's flawless. It works every time. If you're feeling down, call somebody, talk to them for 5 minutes, and it'll bring you out of that, and then you can move on to bigger, better things.
Yeah. Don't be selfish, man. Give somebody the opportunity to help you out.
Absolutely.
Because that's huge. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.